Assalamu alaikum, Halimah here, your Quran lifestyle coach and founder of Quran Rehab, where we basically help Muslims to transform their lives by revolutionizing their Quran relationships. Okay, so today I really want to talk about how can we stay inspired? Because as human beings, when we feel really inspired, it brings this breath of fresh air into our lives, right? We're able to think more creatively, we're able to generate this drive and energy to just get things done. We're able to have this mind shift sometimes that can help us to have more breakthroughs and resolve the problems we have in our life as well. And the truth about inspiration is that it's not something that you and I just have to sit around and wait for stumbling upon by accident somehow. And it's also something, by the way, that you're not going to find every day by just scrolling on social media feeds looking at pretty pictures either. This is something that you can generate on a consistent basis in your life when you consciously and consistently put things in place in your life that can help you achieve it. And today, inshallah, I want to share with you 4 Quranic ideas I have on inspiration, inshallah, that have completely transformed my personal life. And I know that they can do the same for you too, inshallah. And for those who are new to Quran Rehab, the reason why I'm sharing Quranic tips and techniques like I do in all my videos is because of the belief that we have here that, just like the Quran when it was revealed, it completely revolutionized the world in ways that seemed unimaginable. Every time you and we approach the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's inviting you and I to transform our lives in completely unimaginable ways as well. There is no better way of us having more and doing more and being more than turning to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, who created us and knows best how to achieve everything that we want, and that clarified all these things as to how we can attain it through the Quran. Okay, so when people ask me, Halimah, how do you stay inspired to, continue writing, creating videos, creating online courses and coaching people, around the world, alhamdulillah? How do I stay inspired to homeschool my children and, be the best mother I can and the best wife and leader, etc.? These are the 4 ideas I have for setting up my life for more inspiration from the Quran. Now, the first one is basically to travel and to create for yourself new experiences. Because, as fantastic as it is to have all our schedules and, our timetables and our calendars out, and because obviously these things help us get things done, right? Sometimes it's equally important from time to time for us to kind of break those routines and do something adventurous as well. And traveling, when we travel somewhere new or we're having new experiences and engaging in new activities, what's actually happening is that we are physically changing our physiology to begin with. So we're changing the way that we're moving and breathing and what we're exposing our senses to. We're changing our environment. So we're exposing ourselves to different types of people and cultures and ideas and languages. And what all these things do is they essentially open up our brains to make new connections. So we're gaining new perspectives, we're gaining new ideas, new thinking. And all of these things help us to draw new inspiration. And in the Quran, the word sayr, the word to move or to travel, is actually mentioned 27 times in its various different variations. And a lot of the time, if you look at those variations, subhanAllah, they're in the form of commandments or questions. So things like, tell them to travel, or why do they not travel? And subhanAllah, if you look in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He lists many benefits to traveling. And one of those benefits, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned in the Quran, is when He said, "Inna fi dhalika la'ayatin likulli sabbarin shakur." When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, so that He may show you His divine wonders and His signs. Let me ask you, what does a divine wonder and a sign do? They inspire us, right? By nature, something that is a divine wonder or a sign, it's something that is beyond our human ability to understand or to create ourselves, something that is attributed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help to move us from within, to help to inspire us. And you'll find in the Quran many occasions where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is encouraging us to seek out these ayat in the world around us, and through different new learning information and through a lot of experience-based information as well. One of the most obvious being through traveling. So my suggestion here would be, why not schedule some time into your monthly or your yearly calendar where you can have, schedule a new activity for yourself, or to try a new experience, or to take a short trip as well. So I say ideally every 90 days or so, if not, maximum every 6 months or so. And you will see the impact that that can have on the level of inspiration that you feel, inshallah. Now, the second Quranic idea I have for you on feeling more and staying more inspired is to seek out inspirational role models. Now, there's two aspects to this and a little bit of depth that I'm going to go into. When I say there is two aspects, I mean by, that we should seek out role models from both the past, from history, as well as from the present. And, having role models in our lives as human beings is such a huge part of our human psyche and our genetic makeup. It's something that we seek and we naturally desire because having role models helps to inspire us to be better versions of ourselves. And this is why, subhanAllah, in Allah's hikmah and Allah's immense love for us, if you actually look into the Quran, you'll find that almost half of the entire Quran just consists of stories of the past. And of those stories, they primarily consist of stories about the greatest and the most inspirational role models there are, and that is the Anbiya, the prophets of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says about those stories, He said that they are ahsan al-qasas, that they are the best of stories, and that's because they deal with the best of creation. And we are even more blessed because it's not like we have to whip a big fat biography off the shelf and we're going to have to sift through things that are relevant and irrelevant, analyze what we can apply to our own lives and what we can't. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He already did this for us in the Quran. Out of the tremendous amount of prophets that He graced this earth with, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He specifically mentions 25 in the Quran for us. And of their stories, He has selected specific incidents and information to give us that is relevant to all of our lives, that we can all seek inspiration from, we can seek practical solutions for in terms of overcoming our problems and becoming our best selves, inshallah. So it's my suggestion that, you schedule some time every week to revisit history. So start with the Quran. Look at the lives of the prophets and the lives of amazing figures in the Quran like Maryam alayhi salam, like Asiya and the mother of Musa alayhi salam. And of course, even after that, we have a rich Islamic history as well. So there's many, many amazing figures, whether that's Hassan al-Basri, whether it's Fatima al-Samarqandiyya, male and female alike. There are so many inspirational role models to learn about. And when I said that there was a bit more depth to this suggestion as well, to this point, when we're selecting role models, whether it's from the past or from the future, we shouldn't restrict ourselves in terms of restricting ourselves to finding inspirational role models within our own personal field of interests. We should really keep it open to find people who are so passionate and people who are great at various different areas of life, even if it's something that we don't naturally take interest to ourselves. And that way, what we're doing is we're basically exposing ourselves to greater levels of inspiration, because it's not only people's knowledge or their actions that are going to inspire us, but there's a lot more to people to be inspired by. So you can be very inspired by a person's way of thinking, by a person's character and their mannerisms. It can be their presence, for example. So don't restrict yourself. There are many, many amazing figures, both past and present, both Muslims and non-Muslims alike, to draw inspiration from. Now, the third Quranic idea I have for setting up your life for inspiration, inshallah, is journaling. Now, I know it sounds really, really simple, but it's actually transformational, subhanAllah. And that's important to remember because, we're not always around inspiring people. We're not always traveling and, having new experiences where it's quite easy to be inspired. This is something that you can actually create on a consistent basis as a habit in your life. You can do it several times a day even. And this is going to create a consistent and amazing source of inspiration for you, inshallah. So this is essentially where you're spending time with yourself, with your own thoughts and observations and feelings. So certain things you might journal are things like your aspirations in life, observations from things that you've noticed around you. It could be things like lessons from the experiences that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifted you with, your certain thoughts and feelings about things that you've experienced or things that you see, etc. And I promise you, when you have this habit and you build it into your life, you're going to start feeling far more inspired, inshallah. Anytime I personally myself have had a major breakthrough in my life, or I came up with really good ideas, or I was able to overcome certain things, or feel high levels of authenticity or clarity or inspiration, it's always involved the process of journaling. By the will of Allah, anything, where I am today, my lifestyle, the work that I do, it's all been inspired by the fact that whenever certain events have taken place in my life, the process and the practice of journaling afterwards has always been in place, alhamdulillah. As Muslims, we should know the power of the pen and of all the kind of actions associated with it. Things like secluding yourself and the act of reflection and internal dialogue and writing things down, specifically when it comes to inspiration, because we're told that when the greatest of inspiration came down, when the Quran was revealed, wahi came, we're told about the circumstances that were taking place at the time with the Prophet ﷺ, right? That he would seclude himself, that he would reflect a lot, that he would, observe the world around him and think about the thoughts and feelings that he had with, in relation to those things, subhanAllah. And then when the Quran was revealed, what was the first ayah to grace this earth? What was the most powerful lesson that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to teach us? It was Iqra, right? It was to read. And subhanAllah, there's so many profound lessons that we can learn from those few ayats that were first revealed. And I want to just quickly, briefly go through them, because I think that, not only are they relevant to the topic today, but they can provide really great food for thought as well. And the first of those is that, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he introduced himself as our Rabb, he mentioned only two things that he created specifically, and perhaps the most important, and that was human beings and the pen. The fact that the first commandment revealed to us as Muslims was to read, it shows us that essentially transformation and inspirational development from our lives, it essentially comes from what we learn through the pen, subhanAllah. And then, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in these verses where he's telling us that he is the most dignified, who taught us via the pen, who taught man that which he did not know, it shows us that the pen and the lessons that we derive from the pen are actually sacred, and they're taught to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And us actually archiving our speech and our thinking is something, from the Quranic perspective, is something that is a privilege, something that's an honor, a heavenly gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So my suggestion would be to utilize this heavenly gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us by, on a daily basis, minimum of just 5 minutes every morning and every night journaling is going to transform the level of inspiration that you feel, inshallah. The last and the most important idea for gaining more inspiration in your life, inshallah, relates to the Quran itself. And that is basically to set a time, to block time specifically in your day to engage with the study of the Quran in whatever capacity that might be for you in your personal life. And I know that might make sense because all of the previous points we spoke about are techniques and tips mentioned from the Quran. And as we mentioned, the Quran has these amazing ideas and tips for how we can achieve everything we want, right? But there is actually another reason why I say that this is the most important and the most powerful idea or habit that we can build in our lives for having more inspiration. And that's because, the previous 3 points that we spoke about actually deal with getting inspiration from the creation, right? So we spoke about traveling, so we're inspired by nature, we're gaining inspiration through inspirational role models, human beings, from journaling. But there is a profound difference between gaining inspiration from creation and gaining inspiration directly from the Creator. And there are two beautiful verses in the Quran that demonstrate the difference for us. And they basically are Surah Al-Imran, verse 52, and Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 111. Now, although both of them essentially deal with the same context, so what we have is that the disciples of Isa alayhi salam are basically proclaiming their faith. But there are some subtle differences. So in the first verse, Isa alayhi salam himself is calling out to his disciples and they are responding by proclaiming their faith. Whereas in the second verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually interfering with the heart and inspiring the heart of the disciples directly, and as a result they are overwhelmed and they express their and declare their faith. And in Arabic there is a subtle difference that you can see as well, that is kind of lost in translation, but if you read it, the first it reads as بِأَنَّا مُسْلِمُونَ and the second is بِأَنَّنَا, so there's an extra noon there. And although, like I said, you can't really tell that difference in the English language, in Arabic, rhetorically speaking, the principle is that if you use more verbiage, if you use more words, then you're being more emphatic. So the difference here is that in declaring their faith, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspired the hearts of the disciples of Isa alayhi salam, they were more emphatic in that declaration. Another amazing thing about these verses is that when Isa alayhi salam was calling onto his disciples, they responded with, "We believe in Allah." Whereas when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself directly inspired the disciples, they simply responded with, "We believe," which inclusively encapsulates their belief in all truth. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's highlighting for us that when he directly inspires our hearts, then every dimension and aspects of our being is inspired and empowered, subhanAllah. So if we're really seeking to be inspired in its most absolute and beautiful of forms, then the best way to do this is to be inspired directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the best way of trying to achieve that is through his very own words, the Quran. Okay, so inshallah, if you enjoyed this video and you felt that you benefited from it, then please do share it with all those that you love. Hit the subscribe button so that you can get notifications every time I upload new free video training. And if you think that you might be ready to start really, becoming your best self, living your best life, inshallah, through transforming your Quran relationship, then please head over to Quranrehab.com, inshallah, to check out how you can do that and find out more. I hope this video served you, inshallah. So until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.